Hello, everyone! I'm Felicia Rondo, and that's closed over there.
Hey.
And this is our review of IDW Sonic number 60. It's the latest issue of the ongoing series. We've been following it since, I believe, 48 on this channel. So, yeah. Hey, Rain and chat. Good to see you. Good to see you. This is, this is the, part four, sorry, four of
Mm-hmm.
Urban Warfare. It's the second part that's been written by Evan Stanley, and yeah, so it's still bad.
Fair word of warning, I might hate this issue.
Yeah. So
Honestly, when the comic came out yesterday and we read it, it put me in such a foul mood that I was just like, I'm not going to review this comic today. I need,
yeah.
anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Then I woke up today and I realized that I had to review the comic today. So, now I'm
Yeah.
still not in a great mood
Still not.
because I hate this comic, I
It's
think.
it's pretty bad. Um. So I guess do you look at the cover right now, or
Let's look at the cover, talk about the credits, and then before we get into the meat of talking about the issue, I want to share some thoughts in general about how this arc has been going.
yeah, yeah. All right.
Um, because of course the cover highlights one big issue of this arc, and that's that it has too many fucking characters.
See, I thought where we were going was this cover highlights one big issue of the comic, issue 59, because it's
It does so, yeah. For whatever reason, they made the decision to put a comic that perfectly encapsulates last issue, or a
mm-hmm.
cover that perfectly encapsulates last issue on this issue. Because, of course, here we have our trio of Sonic and Tails and Amy. We got Silver and Blaze being in the background, not being terribly relevant, but still being here.
Yeah,
And we've got Sato, Ruse, and Omega fighting a bunch of Sato androids. Meanwhile, Tangle is off with Wanlin and Whisper being in the Ghost Zone.
yeah.
Um, all things that happened last issue and not this issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, still in this issue, Blaze and Silver are mostly irrelevant, and Sonic is hanging out with Tails and Amy, but that's about it.
Yeah, this would have been a much better cover for issue 59 because they have like Tangle is kind of like drifting away from Whisper and Lanolin.
Yeah, and it would sort of be a kind of artistic way to represent the fact that C is not going to be with them going forward in this arc,
Yeah,
whereas that happened last issue, and C's currently alone at the beginning of this issue, and
and in point of fact, like it sort of like illustrates how Tangle, what's happening now is like a manifestation of Tangle's own fear of like drifting away from Whisper. She doesn't have a fear of drifting away from Lanolin, but yeah,
no,
it's
Lanolin
just
is
that.
basically just a character as of 3 issues ago.
Yeah,
So,
so no time to really have establish an emotional connection. But
yeah.
but yeah, so and there's various like little things here and there that like are a little surprising that they made it through like the very rigorous like stay on model like checking process. Like, but you know that these comics have to come out eventually. I assume a lot of the production of this comic has to do with a lot of Sonic Team just having to cut their losses and be like, okay, you can do that, whatever. Just
Hmm.
please put out a comic. But
But yeah, the cover is overall not terribly impressive.
mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like it's trying to go for a style or something. I don't know. It has that look to it where it's like it's not quite standard in its
Yeah.
appearance, but I'm not really sure what it's going for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like there's an odd angularness about Sonic's belly,
Yeah, yeah.
which feels deliberate, but I don't know why it's deliberate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cover by Aaron Hammerstrom and Rain said, I believe Aaron Hammerstrom said it's aiming for Sonic Advance 2 cutscenes. Alright, whatever. It doesn't really come across at all.
I don't think you should try and emulate pixel art in your anyway.
Yeah. Um. So when you open up the comic, there's a couple new additions to the credits page. For one, there's a cover gallery at the front, which, and
Yeah, with the covers, of course, all being incredibly tiny, so you can't tell what any of them look like, which is so very helpful.
yeah, so I don't have to look too closely at them. But yeah, like when we get to the credits, there's a very special edition that we'll be getting to, but the story is by Evan Stanley. Though the overall plot, I believe, is like overall co-written with Evan Stanley and Ian Flynn.
Yeah, it'd be helpful if there was like transparency about that, but I mean, that seems to be a losing battle or a lost battle, so I don't know.
Yeah, we just kind of have to look at Tumblr posts and then overhear about podcast episodes. But
Yeah.
yeah, art by Thomas Roethlisberger, who did the Imposter Syndrome miniseries' interiors. Colors by John Paul Bove, who I kept almost call just my brain just kept conjuring up by Jove when I was like looking at his
Hmm.
name, and then color assists by Ed Peary. I don't know
We're
if
gonna
you've seen
circle
that
back
yet.
to that.
Letters
But
by
yeah.
Sean Lee, who's been canned as of
Yeah,
the
not sure.
layoffs.
Yeah, not sure if we'll have a different letterer we have to credit next issue because, yeah, Sonley was fired from IDW recently.
Laid the fuck off like a dog so that they could unlock value.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, y'all. They're gonna unlock value.
Now that the owner's son has been installed as CEO, we have nothing but contempt for the publishing company. But yeah, editors
Mm-hmm.
Riley Farmer, David Marriott. So those color assists.
Yeah. Now, as you may be aware, if you've been keeping up with our reviews, a few issues ago,
Yeah.
we learned before our review that there had been uncredited coloring work done. And
Yes.
so we made an effort to credit it. Then, in a subsequent issue, we were not made aware of the uncredited color work and thus did not end up crediting it, which pissed us off because we made a specific effort to do better than this sit comic.
And so in the next review we had to bring it up,
Yeah,
which
to state a
sucks.
correction on our part. Not that, this comic is interested in stating a correction on misattributing coloring work done by one person to another. Could you remind me the two names? Because I think it was the same pair each time.
It was okay. So I think Jonathan Dobbs did coloring for two different color artists,
Okay,
but like Jonathan Dobbs did flatting for two issues at this point. I think
that we know of.
that we know of.
Unless,
Here's the thing: the coloring was by John Paul Bove. It was color assist by Ed Peary, as far as we know, and that's all we can say for the rest of this comic's history because this comic has not been good about this.
yeah, the fact that a second colorist is, a color assist person is being credited at all makes me feel like we are probably not having, a situation where work is being credited incorrectly to the wrong person this time.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Probably. We can't know anymore because trust has kind of been shaken.
Yeah.
But
Especially as, despite this happening, no one working on the comic seems to have a problem with the uncredited and miscredited coloring work.
right, yeah, because ultimately the coloring doesn't get credited. It just gets credited entirely to the person who didn't do the flats.
Yeah. And I think for the second issue Jonathan Dobbs did, I think, wasn't it said that he did like 90% or something of the flats or something?
I had it somewhere, but
Like it was a significant amount anyway, whereas like it was, I believe it was implied that was a lesser amount the first time, but
yeah, he definitely had done more that time than he ever had before. But yeah, they
yeah, the exact numbers aren't terribly necessary for this because it's just
freelancers have a right
interesting.
to be
It's just
credited.
interesting to me that now they're deciding that they can credit two color artists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we have a really weirdly bad story so far page.
Yeah, so now we have criticized the story so far page in generally vague terms before, just because um,
It
I mean, a lot of the time it doesn't even seem very necessary because a lot of the time the comic itself will just recap what happened, and so like, do
yeah.
you really need to waste paper and ink on this? But
Mm-hmm.
in this particular case, I have no idea what whoever, like whichever editor was thinking when they picked these panels.
The most I can figure is that they thought the Shadow Androids panel was cool, which can't relate, but and they wanted to fit it in amidst how much goddamn space it takes in the story so far page.
Yeah, because we have like panels of Eggman dropping all of his little Shadow robots. We have a big explosive panel of Shadow doing the chaos control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then which one was this?
Lanolin hatching a plan.
Right, the idea to mentioning the power surge, which is, also was Shadow exploding a bit, but let's not include that part.
Mm-hmm.
And that if they can, do that again and prevent Eggman from restarting his router, then the city will explode or whatever.
Yeah.
And then to finish it all off, we have Tangle learning she can phase through walls
A
and being
really
surprised about it.
a really awkward panel to end on. I remember being very weirded out by how the comic ended. Just suddenly whoop.
Didn't last issue end with her falling? Like, wasn't there a
Yeah.
page of her just falling out of the sky? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're gonna put a bunch of real estate on a full page spread, maybe it should be that one.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the cast page continues to both be terrible and be, in this case, way too packed. There are 12 named characters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's not good. So that's the
But
cast page, and yeah.
so yeah, that's all the as Rain in chat mentions, yeah, the fact that Whisper and Lanolin have been caught in Eggman's weird Pokeballs
Yeah.
seems rather relevant information, but it is not covered in the story so far page.
Yes.
And before we get into the comic proper, I just like this whole arc has been bad.
Yeah.
It started off with Ian Flynn not only, like, I think, fucking up the introduction to this story, which, like, come on, dude, it was done way better when Ken Penders did it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, you're just doing Sonic's Angels, but again.
Yeah. So that got fucked up like really quickly and really incompetently.
Yeah. And then, of course, he then really clumsily did some cheap, exploitative, mostly manipulative drama between Tangle and Whisper because fans are invested in them, and that pissed a lot of people off because
Yeah. That was
it
like
was
the whole
cheap,
thing. Mm-hmm.
cheap, dirty, emotional manipulation of your fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just in general squandered what could have been a good Tangle and Whisper story by wasting the setup from Trial by Fire on what felt like a really rushed resolution after a whole issue of forced bad tension.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, those first two issues were just really horribly paced, where not a lot happened. We spent like 2 entire pages on sending a wisp into the air. And then it comes back. Then sending Sonic into the air. Then he comes back. And
Also, we could look at a building that is not ruined.
Yeah, look, that building. See that building that is fine?
It wasn't fine before. They
And
all the buildings look the same, but
and I just feel, I mean, if you can pick out a singular building and tell that it is not as destroyed as it should be, I think you should notice when the city is larger,
yeah,
like with your eyes.
like when you're like going into it, when you're like outside,
You know, like it. There's kind of even a forest just outside of it, and you should probably notice that it's closer to the forest than the last time you were here.
and that the trees are kind of dying.
Yeah, which barely got a mention, the whole environmental angle. We
Yeah,
mostly focused on the fact that there's no rocks underneath.
yeah,
Focus on crystals and rocks again for our environmentalism.
yeah. Yeah. Those first two issues felt like a waste.
Yeah, and then of course we are now on Evan's second issue, and she's going to be, I guess, wrapping it up. I guess next time.
Yeah,
And so last time that Evan was taking over for Ian on a storyline, it was when he was ending his imposter syndrome into Battle for the Empire non-story arc because it didn't finish because it rolled right into Power Surge?
overpowered.
Overpowered.
Hmm.
I keep thinking it's called Power Surge.
I mean, I think Power
Um,
Search would have been a better title, and it wouldn't be so gamery.
Honestly, Power Surge I think would have made a lot more sense. Maybe they just didn't want to have the character's name in it because
Hmm.
maybe they thought that was a little goofy. But it keeps being what my brain believes it should be.
Yeah,
Anyway, when Evan took over to then just not even do a different story, but just continue the same story, but now it's called Overpowered.
yeah,
Um, there were several issues leading into it where I felt like it had to be won over, and then Evan was able to pull me in, but then I got lost. She lost me towards the end, and it just kind of
yeah.
ended very unsatisfyingly, in my opinion. Even as, it's not like it was terrible or anything. It's just,
No, yeah. Honestly, I tend to wonder if like maybe it'll be a grower once we have more context for Surge and more stories after it. I don't know. We'll see.
I just feel like there's not much you can do to make you can make a better story later,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, yeah.
when a story squanders its own potential, it feels like, then.
Hmm.
Though if you're talking about potential and being squandered, there's not a lot of actual potential here.
Yes.
Because when Evan took over, there was no really winning me over part. There was a better written comic last time compared to what happened previously,
Hmm.
but it's not like I ever was made to care about this
Yeah.
glorified video game level
Hmm.
of a storyline.
Yeah. It all feels like we're there's a part in this comic that feels more like it's a video game. It's like a segment of a level in a video game versus like something happening in a storyline that like I
Yeah.
care about. We'll get to it.
But yeah, this is all to basically say that, like, number one, I don't think that it's good when Ian and Evan are both working on the same story because, and go with me on this very short, simple journey, their creative voices are incredibly different.
Yes.
Whether you like one, the other, or both, it doesn't matter. I think we can all agree that the way they write these characters and these stories is completely different from one another.
Yeah.
And so you just get a bunch of tonal whiplash when you go from one to the other. Um, and also, it doesn't help that, like, things do not stay consistent between these two.
No.
The most notable example, of course, is Dr. Starline's Hypnoglove, which was notably much more powerful in Ian's stories than in the one time it appeared in Evan's story. And in fact, it was apparently a creation of Evan's, and it being too powerful was a sticking point, and it never actually stopped being that powerful.
Yeah, like there was some lip service to like, oh, Starline has made Surgeon Kit particularly prone to the Hypno Glove, but then later they use the Hypno Glove on him and it works like instantly.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know.
And
But
also there was kind of a really shitty part of Zeddy Hunt where,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
ableism happened, and yeah. And so I really want this to stop. When we are starting stories with Ian and ending them with Evan, I thought maybe, since I don't particularly care for Ian's writing, maybe it would mean that, these stories would get salvaged. But with Overpowered, it just didn't work out at all.
Mm-hmm.
The whole resolution was just very muddled.
Yeah.
And then here, the entire premise of this story is so boring.
There's like really nothing to hold on to for us.
And so little has been done to make it feel like it has stakes that, like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. The comic has not been good for me lately. So,
It's a bummer.
I mean, this whole year, hasn't been a good issue of this comic, in my opinion.
Honestly, because I think this time last year, Imposter Syndrome issue 4 was coming out.
And we were being pleasantly surprised by the writing of Ian Flynn, which, normally we are not super keen on.
Yeah. But, like, next month's gonna mark one. If things will turn around by next month, it'll be 1 year of us being like, the comic really just hasn't dug itself out of the hole it put itself in issue 50,
Yeah.
which is rough.
Yeah. So this whole comic, if we can move on to it now,
Mm-hmm.
so I think we can.
Yeah.
The comic proper opens exactly where we left off last time, with Tangle falling out of the sky and having a particularly badly drawn face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her, like, I'm sorry if I'm just harping on this one drawing, but, like, her jaw is massive.
Yes.
Just so huge. It looks like,
Thomas Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I was just double checking. Thomas Roethlisberger, like, drew this all upside down, and because, you don't normally draw a face upside down, he got the proportions wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that he did that, but I'm just saying, dude, if you just swivel the canvas 180 degrees, draw a regular face,
Yeah.
and then move it to upside down, then it would maybe be better for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the only bit of drawing that I think is bad, just outright bad,
Yeah.
in this issue. I just wanted to highlight that it's right here on page 1.
Yeah. Also on page 1, we get this establishing shot of Eggperial City, and we have Tangle here, just kind of very small in that panel, just like in silhouette except for her eyes. And
Yeah.
given that I mostly care about Tangle and not the city, I feel like maybe we could the priorities here of let's really make people see the city and its colorful emeralds.
I mean, actually, I do want to talk about something about the city, which goes back all the way to issue 49 and Imposter Syndrome 4 and issue 50, and just every time it's appeared, which is, it really feels like someone thinks that they have a really clever idea for a really cool visual.
Mm-hmm.
And they really sort of told anyone what that visual is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Because every depiction of this city leading up to this arc has looked so different.
Yeah.
There was a time when the artificial emeralds looked like big Christmas trees and were very, like, artificial. But then sometimes they look more mountainous. Here
Yeah.
they're like spires of crystal. It's
Yeah.
unclear exactly how many of them there are, how much of the city it takes up.
And I feel like there's this sense that like, okay, this city is weird, it's growing, so of course it's gonna look different, right? And I think no. I think no. And and the thing is, I feel like if they had nailed down an aesthetic for
Yeah,
it.
it feels like this big thing. The whole city is supposed to feel big, but its visual identity wasn't like clarified before they started drawing it. So
Yeah.
I get no sense of what it's supposed to be like. I feel like maybe if it was better planned out, then just like I could tell approximately where a character is supposed to be by the color of which crystals they're on, because
Yeah.
they are laid out in like a spoke and wheel pattern. If they,
Yeah. And I think not having it figured out and just making it different every time kind of undercuts some of the resonance you could have had. Because, like, as far back as Sonic the
exactly.
Hedgehog, the first game, the whole point is like, oh, this beautiful, vibrant world is being taken over and mechanized into this uniform, disgusting, just roboticized, like, just mess. And, like, just the natural world is diverse, vibrant. The industrialized mayhem that Eggman's bringing, it should be like uniform and like lockstep and depressing.
Hmm.
This is just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and for such an important location, for a location that's supposed to be by itself, the location is supposed to be like the enemy. The location is the obstacle to face. The city itself is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It really is not helping my lack of investment that it didn't get a clearer visual identity. Even with all the establishing shots, it just served to make me feel like oh, it looks different from last time I saw it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Tangle's fallen like we saw last issue. Um,
Yeah.
she's having a rough go of it, noticing there's nothing to grab, and in a moment
Thinking
of
she's gonna fucking die.
she just says, "Whisper, I'm sorry," as she falls into the
And in the next
floor.
page, we see she goes into the floor completely because she's just phasing through things. And then, to much to her surprise, comes back out of the floor. Not really sure why. And also, we don't get like a moment to rest here.
No, we don't, cause
This feels like the moment where Tangles would be like, oh wow, I didn't die. Right, I can do a thing. Instead, the very next panel, Metal Sonic comes crunching down with one of Eggman's fucking pentagonal
Pokeballs,
Pokeballs.
and with a really gross. I don't like this drawing of Tangle.
Yeah,
Feels like it was just drawn for memes, but then Metal sends the guys after the pentagonal Pokeballs after Tangle. Tangle
yeah,
yells
because like
again.
to be clear, it's like a little device made up of a bunch of different pentagon like sides, and they all come together to form a thing,
Yeah.
a shape. Which Tangle dodges. All right. Looking very worried and sort of runs away. And in a series of panels I thought was completely unclear.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, God, I don't know why it's like this. She dodges into an alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see Metal following her, shadow on the ground. Then we see his face as he's looking,
Mm-hmm.
and then she pokes back out. And I thought it was going to be a comedic continuing of the chase thing, because there was nothing visually to indicate that Metal Sonic had left.
Yeah. But Metal Sonic did apparently leave.
At some point that we don't get to see, even though the previous panel was literally his face staring.
Mm-hmm.
The visual storytelling of this issue is some of the worst.
Which is, shocking because I mean, back in Chow Races and Badnik Bases, even when Evan wasn't drawing, we counted on the visual storytelling to be at least a little pretty good because her scripting usually, leads to that.
Yeah, so I am given our track record with Evan in the past and the fact that there was only one other time other than this that I can remember terribly unclear visual storytelling being the end of Overpowered. I'm willing to put the blame on this one on Thomas Roethlisberger.
Yeah, probably the editors too, I'd say.
I mean, I put blame for the whole reason this comic's so sit all the time on the editors.
Yeah, yeah,
They should be on top of that.
yeah. But in the next page, Tangle phases back out from the floor and hides away in an alleyway, just peeking out as she remarks that, okay,
She has a moment of crisis.
mm-hmm,
You know, just like, oh, I don't know why this is here.
yeah, but she remarks that I gotta tell Sanka what's up, but Lana would know how to find them, and Whisper could get us there. And then there's a moment where she says, "Whisper, I promised, but what if I?" Before shaking her head, and saying, "Nope, nope, don't think about it. Keep moving forward." And she heads to where the smoke is coming from. Hmm?
No, I want to criticize this more.
Okay, cool.
Um, I mean, number one, this is barely a moment.
Yeah,
This is a problem of this whole issue overall. The pacing is clearly there was not enough time to tell the amount of story that was left.
mm-hmm.
I guess because back in the first two issues of the arc, we were taking multiple pages to do nothing.
What did you say
Rather
the
than
pacing was? I think the mic cut you off there.
it's fucked. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fucked.
It's sit. I'm sitting on it.
Yeah, it's shitting on the comic, but
I'm sitting on the comic. I want to know why Lanolin would know where to find them.
yeah,
Also,
I don't really.
so far, I just want to point out so far, what we know of Lanolin, she was a villager.
Yes,
Sonic saved her life.
yes,
She joined the Restoration.
right.
She has a
Wisp.
indigo wisp
Yeah,
that she keeps in her cowbell.
yeah. Apparently, that's what we've been able to
She's very unconfident,
Yeah,
but she makes up for it with bravado. Though in reality, she's probably not actually qualified for her position. She's really just in the faking it part, and I don't think she's quite at making it.
yeah,
Um, those are the 8 things we know about her. I was counting on my fingers.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know how any of that would help her to find anyone ever.
I
Were
guess
we
she
supposed to
could
know that
send
she's
the
a tracker, or
she could send the Indigo Wisp up and or something. I don't know.
Whisper has 5 wisps? She could just be like, okay, guys, now just all go in 5 directions, see if you see them, then come back, and then we'll go there.
Whisper in her 5 Pidgeotos.
Yeah, just, they can all bring back Team Rocket.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels like, I don't know if there's a character trait about Lanolin that we just haven't been informed about, or we're just trying to make her feel important to the story even though she has literally contributed nothing.
I mean, if we're being honest here, I feel like if Landon was here, she'd be the one who'd be having a crisis at this exact moment.
Based on what we know about her.
She would just be like, "Oh, I can't do this," and then Tangle would have to spend emotional labor energy on making Lanolin feel better.
This whole arc is so messy, and I say again, there are too many characters.
Yeah.
There's no reason Lanolin had to be here. There's no reason this whole Neo Diamond Cutters thing had to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has nothing to do with anything that's happening.
Yeah.
The Neo Diamond Cutters are in their own little microcosm where they're just kind of distracting from the main story, which isn't interesting. It's not like the main story is interesting or something, but it's just there's so much less time and ability to tell this boring story.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get, this bullshit pacing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after Tangle gives herself a pep talk in, it's basically just one page, getting into a terrible state of mind and then pulling herself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For all
the good that does, yeah.
She runs off towards some smoke because maybe the friends will be at the smoke.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, near the smoke, the friends are here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With Silver, I'm gonna say strategizing for lack of a better term, with Amy.
Silver acting like a weird dickhole.
Yeah. I don't know why he's written like this.
But for whatever reason, Silver's really acting headstrong and brass, and he's being drawn weird too.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we have a Sonic. In fact, he's being drawn like I'd expect Sonic to be drawn.
Yeah.
But Sonic instead is just in the corner of a panel looking kind of glum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's simple, Silver says. Go get Eggman, basically. And
yeah.
Oh, hey Freyo and chat. Good to see ya. Happy to have
Hey.
you. We're not too far into the comic because there's been lots to go over about what we've been thinking about the overall story arc in general.
Bad.
It's bad. But yeah, they're all hovered around the Miles Electric, and Amy is trying. Yeah.
To be specific, I just want Amy and Silver.
Sorry. Yeah.
Only them are having a strategy meeting on top of the Miles Electric. Tails in the background is looking on.
Yeah.
Ruse is
sulking
20 feet away with her arms crossed, facing the corner, but with her head turned to look at everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonic and Blaze are squeezed into the bottom of the panel so we can just see their heads.
Yeah, I don't think Sonic should be able to be visible while he's clearly lying down at the very.
It looks Sonic is very clearly drawn to be lying down, but he must be floating in midair to be level with Blaze.
There's another moment like that in this comic we'll get to.
Yeah, but
Amy's trying to explain to Silver that just going in.
Yeah, bringing up Test Run as well. Because remember when Test Run happened?
Someone remembers Test Run.
Yeah. No little editor's note being like, see Test Run. I liked those little comic-y things.
Yeah, we used to have them in this comic.
Remember comics?
Oh, man. So...
But yeah, Silver is just weirdly cocky and arrogant, thinking that it'll all go fine with no plan.
And then, Blaze comes in, trying desperately to justify her
existence in the story.
comic. Yeah!
Because now Blaze is going to be the voice of reason, which Amy was already being, but let Blaze take over so that we can feel like Blaze is supposed to be here. Not that, she's gonna do anything this issue to justify her existence, but, it's fine. She didn't get to do anything the last arc she was a big part of either.
Mm-hmm. But it would be naive to assume victory before they begin, Blaze says, and Tails just very woodenly remarks that anything they can do to increase their odds of success is essential.
Yep, he just kind of walks in to further the plot.
Doing things is doing things.
If we did something that would make us more likely to succeed, then we'd be more likely to succeed. All to set up Ruse's dialogue.
Our best bet at that is rescuing Shadow and Omega. And then Silver's like, that does make sense. And his little tiny hamster wheel in his head.
What if instead of rushing Eggman, we make Sir Shadow's not fucking dead? Why are we even having this conversation? Why did we end off last time being like, oh, they're strong, I'm sure they're okay, if we're just going to immediately go and rescue them this issue?
And then Amy says, just to set up the next panel, it's always best when cooler heads prevail.
And then Tangle pops out of the ground because he's, semi-incorporeal, right where the Miles Electric is.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amy immediately, comically, goes, ah! And smashes her hammer down because of her whack-a-mole instinct.
Yeah, yeah.
Destroying the Miles Electric, and Tangle, of course, is... Tangle is as immaterial as the comic needs her to be at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
So she is completely unaffected.
Yeah. I also want to point out that Tangle has at last found our heroes 1 page after she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna find them.
Yeah, there is so far not been a page of this comic that Tangle is not on.
Wow.
That's how quickly she has found the heroes.
Tails is distraught at the destruction of the Miles Electric. Sonic doesn't care.
Yeah. And Tails immediately gets over it.
Yeah.
So that he can have nerd dialogue about how Tangle is semi-solid.
Yeah. And anyway, after everyone reacting to her semi-solidness, Tangle says a lot of words just to tell everyone to chill out.
Yeah. Also, there's this moment that I thought was fun, but doesn't really get any time in the sun, where Blaze has her chin in her hand. She's like, "What a strange power!" And it feels like she is under the impression that this is something Tangle does normal.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was a very fun implication.
We didn't get to,
but
like...
we don't really get any time to enjoy it or anything.
Mm-hmm. And Sonic asks Tangle, did the trap we ran into do this? And Tangle is like, yeah, Whisper and Lanolin are stuck. And then
the Pokeball comes and tries to capture Sonic, but he dodges after Tangle's like, Sonic, dodge it!
And, and he's like, Sonic! And he dodges and then does a Thunderbolt.
Yeah, because Metal Sonic has arrived. Because we didn't mention because I also completely didn't realize what was happening.
Yeah.
But when Tangle is running off to the smoke to be like, oh, maybe the friends will be at the smoke. The friends were at the smoke.
Yeah.
Metal Sonic Sue is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, the first time we were reading this, I thought it was a Motobug.
I thought
it was like a Motobug's little mandible or something.
Yeah.
But upon closer inspection, it's clearly a Sue.
Yeah.
But maybe it probably would have helped if maybe it was zoomed out a little bit more. Like if his Sue was a little bit more in frame, so I could tell that it was his Sue and his leg. But yeah.
Yeah. Freyo says in chat, Sonic must be a Pokemon now. He definitely is.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the next panel, just at the end of the last page, Metal is sending more Pokeballs out.
Yeah, I guess it's like they're just like weird pentagon panels, so it's a bit unclear exactly how many full units are in existence at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Metal Sonic rushes forward to hold hands with Sonic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which Sonic is more than happy to oblige him in.
Yep, just Metal's favorite thing.
And Sonic's all super grinny happy about it.
Yeah.
And then we have this weird aside with Tangle.
Yeah. Where in a red gradient background with the most hurt, not well drawn, most hurt expression on her face, she says, "He used me. Let me lead him here."
After all they've been through.
Metal is her trusted friend and not the guy who was trying to capture her.
Yeah. He used me. And then,
if you're wondering, there's no more point to that. It's just that's an aside, and then we will never talk about that again.
Silver's about to get caught Um,
Yeah, Silver is just standing there, not understanding why are these things surrounding me, and he's going, what?
yeah, and then
And Tangle yells, as if you need to yell about the Eggman machines surrounding you and making a green energy field. Don't let them get close.
so
I was just gonna let Eggman do whatever he wanted to me, but if Tangle says it's bad, then sir. Um,
and then
well,
Blaze use flamethrower.
while Silver looks like he's still trying to process everything, just like don't let those things get close. Blaze rushes to be beside him and uses her firepower to make them go away, I guess.
And then whoever ships Silver and Blaze is like, yes, yes, it's happening, it's happening. But yeah. So Sonic explains that green light. I think those are the same kind of traps that got the diamond cutters.
And then Silver, hearing that the traps got the diamond cutters, says, not on my watch, and grabs all of them with his psychic power.
And Sonic, in a really badly drawn drawing, says, "Nice."
And then I assume that the Pokeballs are just continuing to float in the air because
He hasn't thrown them yet. They're just kind of stuck there.
yeah, I guess they're just hovering around him. They don't drain
Yeah.
your action gauge whether they just hover. It only drains to pick them up, so you can just hold them for as long as you want. That's a pretty handy part of his powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Silver says, "Looks like we got no choice," as he and Sonic face off against Metal, who's getting ready for fisticuffs. So Silver says, "Let's do this."
But Amy objects.
Mm-hmm. She says, "Oh, no, you don't."
We've got big problems, no time, and most importantly, I am not in the mood. Actually, I think most important is the no time. We just don't have enough pages in the comic to include a full fight here.
Yeah, we have no time. There's only one issue left after this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep the story going.
We wasted too much time on the first two issues.
The floor cracks beneath Metal Sonic, and then something
see-
falling behind him hits him.
She rams down her Pico Pico hammer, which destroys the floor because we're
Yeah.
I don't know. It's completely arbitrary how strong Amy is at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
A pillar on the building crashes down and hits Metal, and he falls into a hole.
There's a drawing of Amy here that, like, has a pretty good expression, and, like, but like, I look at the stick of her hammer, like, the handle of it, and, like, it looks like she's supposed to be resting it, but, like, it's not on
quite
her
on
arm.
her shoulder. Yeah, I think that's just more because of the cartoon dimensions of her head.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea is she's resting her hammer on her shoulder, but I don't think that Sonic-y, like her. I don't think her body dimensions are actually built for that.
Yeah. It's like, it was a drawing I liked before I looked too closely at it. But Rouge says just the kind of direct diplomacy we need, as she
Because
applauds.
Ruth has remembered that she is also in this scene.
And
I think this is actually the first time she's been drawn since she was in the corner.
probably, yeah.
Yeah. She's only being drawn again now because there are so many fucking characters. Even when 4 of them have been taken out of the action, there's still too many.
And so Tails asks what Tangle needed to tell them as they should get moving before Metal comes back. So Tangle says, "We figured out how to take on the city, but first, where's Shadow?" The narration says in the next page, where we cut to a plan.
Yeah, apparently, in between that panel and that dialogue and what is happening now, Tangle explained how they're going to destroy the city and what to do, and then everyone, I assume, talked more and decided who would go where. And the end result that we just have to see because there is no time is that Ruse and Blaze and Silver are now off on a mission to rescue Shadow and Omega. Oh gosh, but how are they going to do it? Well, thankfully they immediately find Omega.
Yeah, it's weird because like there's this panel where they're like where Rouge says if any of those androids were left, we would have seen them by now, and then suddenly there's an android that swipes at her, and she's like
Yeah,
ah, and
to
then
her surprise.
nothing else happens with that android. It just suddenly in the next panel, Omega.
Okay, actually, I really want to focus on this because they come in to a big wrecked
Yes.
crystal place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where Silver's like, "Do you think Sato's still here?" We're just like, "He better be for all our sakes." Blaze looks very bored, even though she's calling for caution. Like, face from there. And that's when Ruse is like, "Yeah, if there were androids, we would have seen them by now." Then an android swipes at her, and she's like, "Huh." And then, in the next panel, she is high in the air, which she was not previously, as evidenced by a dialogue bubble reaching into the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is looking at Omega, who is trapped under some rubble.
Mm-hmm. It feels very sudden from the last panel.
What it feels like is that something got cut in the script
Yeah.
and never
Yeah.
got, like, revised around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like they're supposed to fight this Sato android for a bit, and then afterward, they're supposed to find Omega. And that's how Ruse is in the air. Or even, she just dodges it and then turns and looks and sees Omega. But there's nothing.
It's like they cut out the bottom half of this page and top half of another page.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
And just stuck them together.
Yeah.
But, Ruse goes and playfully knocks on Omega as he's trapped under some rubble.
She references the status quo we found ourselves in and Chow Race's Abatic bases by being like, oh, are you still in one piece this time, big guy? Because they went through a lot of trouble to find replacement parts for Omega.
Yeah. And he vows to suit the floor the moment he is able to.
Yes.
That or the city. I don't know what he means by treacherous terrain. Exactly.
And then
Anyway,
a shunk happens?
Suddenly the floor underneath Omega, which is now also underneath Silver and Blaze because they've walked close, opens up.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's a trapdoor, because then everyone who can't fly and Silver are falling.
In the next
And
page,
then-
Rouge has already gained her bearings and is pointing to them to the next thing of interest, saying, look!
Yeah, okay, let me just zoom in on this panel. Oh god, no, that doesn't help, does it? No, it doesn't help.
Yeah,
But
so...
I hate this app.
It's Comicsology's bad app, but like...
Yeah, but they're falling in silhouette, and then at the end, we see Blaze has used fire to lighten her fall, and Silver has caught himself in his ESP, and Omega's not here.
Yeah.
Like, we see him bouncing off of a thing while they fall, but then he just doesn't show up at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, do you see him? I
don't see him, no.
Is this a Where's Waldo? No, he's not here.
But like,
But yeah.
I want to point out just for
Okay,
a second.
there's a swoop of Mosin heading down in front of behind where Silver is, and then up.
Ah.
Yeah, that's
Rouge.
that random line.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ruse moving.
Yeah.
But you wanted to point out one thing.
Yeah.
Many things to point out.
So, at the start of last page, just one page ago, we were like, are we going to find Shadow and Omega? Are they even here still? Oh, they better be. And then, in that same page, Omega. Next page, Shadow. We found him.
Yeah, and then I think the art is supposed to clarify something here, and it doesn't.
This isn't very clarified for us.
So Ruse says, looks like using these fake emeralds has some nasty side effects.
And
Which is not clear to me, because what we see is that Sato is seemingly just kind of unconscious or leaned over.
yeah,
I don't know, he has his eyes closed, but he also looks to be like he's standing. But I can't tell if he's standing or not because we don't get a clear look at him. We barely spend a tiny panel that it just barely shows his upper body to show him, and
Yeah.
he's ensconced by these yellow crystals. Even though I thought we were doing green crystals here, but I guess there's green and yellow crystals, even though the crystals are lined out in a spoken wheel pattern.
This feels like a video game obstacle.
Yeah, so I mean we'll get to that as we go.
Rouge remarks after noting that the fake emeralds have some nasty side effects. She says,
Whatever they are.
I guess they don't call them chaos for nothing, which, we call them fake emeralds, so.
Yeah, it's also weird. It's a weird thing to note because the regular Chaos Emeralds don't have these side effects.
Yeah.
And those are the actual Chaos Emeralds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a random line that probably didn't get a whole lot of thought put into it.
Let's get him out of there, she says, before being confronted with the remaining shadow androids.
They just were hiding behind the rubble so that they could surprise Ruth because it's her birthday.
It's her birthday, and it's
turning 19.
It's and they have to stall out the objective. You have to lower the health points of Shadow's fake emerald jail cell in order to free him, but also you have to make sure you don't get beaten by the minions.
Really
That's the game design.
Anyway,
in the next,
as Ruse is about to encounter these androids, we cut to Team B.
Mm-hmm.
Tails is hot wiring an elevator, while Tangle and Amy and Sonic are just kind of there waiting for Tails to hotwire an elevator.
Yeah,
that's about all they can do.
Mm-hmm. Useless. But Amy is going over the plan, which we didn't do. Oh. But she is reiterating, I guess, because we already would have gone over it in the first place.
Yeah, first they break into the control room, then Tails disables the safeguards for the fake emerald power grid, and that way they can apparently rescue Whisper and Lanolin. I'm not sure how they're actually planning to do that, given that we don't know how the traps that were used on them work. We only know how the prototype one worked, which was the one that let Tangle kind of escape from the negative zone. Or whatever.
Uh-huh. And crashing the system will stop the city from growing, right?
And then, so, once again, there's a panel here, just on an abstract background, which shows, we see Tangle, where she is in relation to Amy. We see Amy counting to 2. And then we see Sonic, who has gently moved away from Amy so that her speech bubble doesn't intersect his face, so he can stretch.
And he is stretching up a storm, but he's bending so low, he shouldn't really be this visible in the panel.
Yeah. Also, the way his leg is angled, there is no way for his foot to be visible in the panel.
Because we already have Amy here standing on the ground.
Yeah, but also just look at the angle of his leg.
Yeah.
His foot cannot physically be where it is. Anyway.
Oh God, yeah. All this
apparently he's taken his shoe off and is wiggling it because that's the only way this makes sense.
I hate it. Oh, but this and Tails isn't visible in this panel where he's talking.
Because Tails is the only other character with dialogue, and they made sure to have Tangle here. They made sure to have Sonic here. Just spreading out to stop Tails from even being here.
Oh, man.
Anyway, Tails is because Amy's like, oh, it'll stop the city from growing, right? And then Tails says, yep, otherwise it'll keep expanding forever. That's my hypothesis, at least. If I still had the Miles Electric, I'd know for sure. I don't know how.
I really don't know how.
I don't know how having the Miles Electric would have let him know for sure. I actually literally don't know.
We already have all the information like that we need, I feel like.
I don't think that your laptop will be able to tell you more than your basic reasoning can. Like you've already seen the data on how the fake emeralds work and how they grow and how everything happens. You've seen how the city expands and how it heals itself using resources from the environment around it.
If
You
only
have all the available data you need to know there is nothing the Miles Electric could tell him.
if only I could log into Eggman's free Wi-Fi. Then I'd be able to learn so much on the World Wide Web.
Anyway, then there's a confusing panel, which is also for some reason at an angle and
Yeah.
tilted. Amy is like, I said it was an accident, and then gets interrupted by a twoong as we see that she has fallen forward onto Sonic's hand. And he seems to have caught her with one hand, but without even caring. I'm not sure. And
Yeah.
it's really weird looking.
Yeah,
And Sonic is like, why do we stop? And Tails is like, I think something's wrong with the cable system. But what?
and in the next panel, we already find out.
We see that Metal Sonic is there in the process of severing the cable.
I assume he's been there for a bit. As someone remarks, I think I might have an idea, and then
I assume Sonic, but it's not clear because we only see Tangle.
it is weird how much off-camera dialogue we have.
It doesn't really add to anything.
But the cable snaps.
Yeah, Metal Sonic slashes it with his claw, and there's a weird panel with Sonic and Amy in midair on a red background as the word "lurt" appears under them. But Tails grabs them, and Tangle grabs onto Sonic, I guess.
It's Sonic's leg is so like, what's the opposite of foreshortening? Like forelongening? I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, it looks real weird.
And then Metal dives down at Sonic.
Yeah, Metal apparently grabs Sonic in midair, and Tangle is, I guess, unaffected by any of this momentum. But she grabs onto Metal with her tail, and then wraps his face up in her tail and says, "Try beating on my friends and you can't see." Taking advantage of the fact that she is currently immaterial, kind of, to restrain a foe and also not worry about the sudden stop at the end. As she, I guess, is going to fall down the elevator shaft.
She's immaterial enough to not get affected by the Pico Pico hammer, but material enough to wrap around Metal and be unable for Metal to be unable to like get out of her tail.
It's not clear what mechanism she is material or not. Anyway, Sonic pinballs off of the sides of the elevator shaft.
Ungratefully just says thanks Tangle before moving on. What a dick.
But then we cut all the way back to Team A, I guess. They're the first team we saw.
Where a ton of action is happening.
That's one way of putting it. This is so annoying to me. We spent so long last issue with just, oh, the shadow androids, they're impossible to defeat. We can't hurt them. Then this series of events happen. We see that they're fighting a bunch of shadow androids. Ruse remarks that they're running out of time. I'm not sure how. I guess the counter at the top of her screen is getting too low.
Yeah.
Blaze remarks he can't get an opening. An opening for what, you might ask? Don't worry. It won't come up. Omega, who is already firing his bullets even as he speaks, says, "Stand down. If it is an opening you require, then I will provide," and just starts shooting And then in the next panel, all of the androids are gone.
Yeah.
And everyone's right. I guess is the idea that he is suiting the androids and now they are just being held back?
I guess.
I mean, I can't tell where anyone is at any point in this page, so who the fuck knows what's happening?
Blaze is unable to press forward, going, it's overpowering. And then Rouge...
You might be wondering, what is overpowering? I'm not sure.
And then...
They just...
Yeah, go on.
I guess it's trying to say that there's like a force field coming
Something
off
like
of the emerald cage that Sato's in.
Yeah.
But there's like no visual indicator of it. Like, there's a bit of smoke, but that's it.
Yeah.
And then there's this on a white background panel, and I'm pointing out that it's a white background because yellow energy, I think, is coming off of the emerald cage and blasting Rouge back. Not that I can fucking see it.
Yeah.
Why did you put it on a white background?
I just want to say, Rouge is here, taking a stand as one of the very few strong woman characters in the Sonic series, saying, I'm not getting bossed around by some overgrown rock, but then she gets zapped because she is getting bossed around by some overgrown rock.
Yeah.
Blaze says, we can't even get close, but Silver, the man of the house.
Also, there's also a sound, there's a sound effect that's in light yellow on white.
Yes,
I think it's Zach?
It's Zach. Yeah.
I just want to know who the fuck, what fucking complete and utter melon thought that this was remotely appropriate.
I don't know.
There are so many panels that are just, some kind of vague, whatever, gradient. Hell, there is black behind her. Mm-hmm. They're in a dark cave.
Yeah.
I cannot see these effects that are clearly drawn in here. Mm-hmm. I can see the vague outline of them, but that's all I got. Anyway.
Yeah.
Blaze remarks that they can't even get close, as he said, but Silver puts a terrible expression on his face.
Mm-hmm. He's
and
standing firm.
Walks closer? No, he's floating?
I think he's
floating. There's a weird thing here where when he approaches, he's covered in his psionic glow. Mm-hmm. But then there's no of that glow, and he's covered in some red sparks. Mm-hmm.
Which is not the color of the crystals, but I assume it's what they were supposed to be.
I don't know. He says, if I can just figure out why it's... And then he touches it and says, yeah.
And then...
And then there's a big flash while Rouge and Blaze just look.
The women look and they're like, oh man, the man is going through so much pain.
And then he holds his hand, which is like a little scuffed because it's in pain.
Yeah.
And... Okay, in that panel...
Yes.
He has telekinetically grabbed a bit of crystal and thrown it off. Mm-hmm. It's so fucking bright light on bright light, yellow on yellow, cyan on yellow, that I couldn't tell before.
But that seems to be him tearing off a crystal.
Yeah, but then crystals appear underneath him and try to stab him?
Yeah.
And he says, this is bad, it's growing faster than I can tear it off. I mean, you only tore off one bit, and then a bit in a different location grew.
Yeah.
Sir.
And he begins to say, maybe this is more than I can... Only for Blaze to say, Silver! And we cut
he looks back at Blaze.
And Blaze looks kind of annoyed as she nods.
Well, the word nod appears next to her.
Yes.
And then Silver says, right. And then says, get ready to be free, Sato, because I'm not giving up that easily.
And it's weird, because when we were reading this, we both thought it was going to be like, okay, it's time for Blaze to join and help. And now they're both going to use the power of friendship to save Shadow.
But no. he just needed to get nodded at so that he would know that he could manly man it all away his man self.
Oh, it's not very good.
No, it's not. Also, I guess this smoke is covering Ruse, because Ruse was right where a billowing bit of smoke is in this blaze panel.
It's
But,
just coughing off, just off panel. Like, God, fucking smoke.
anyway, we cut back to Team B now, or more correctly, we cut to Eggman, who's gloating.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, even if my emeralds get huge, I'll just use them as more power. And Orbot is like, but wouldn't that be really bad because the whole thing will explode? And
then Eggman
and Eggman is like, but that's why I have that's why I can hit Control Alt Delete on the keyboard at any time I want.
My computer will never crash. It'll always be this way.
Yeah. All the heroes run in with Tangle being on Metal Sonic and a vague amount of motion happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what's meant to be. I don't know what's happening with Tangle and Metal Sonic.
I don't know.
Apparently, Metal was able to follow her friends even without being able to see, so.
Yeah.
Great. Eggman says of Metal, someone is getting a very strict software patch after this. And then Amy tackles him with her elbow.
She's like,
"Hurry up!" Says "Egad." Yeah.
And then,
another Pokeball appears. Tangle's like, not again. And then Sonic faces off against Metal arbitrarily.
Just you and me, Metal. Let's dance.
Just Sonic and Metal now that Tangle has willingly jumped off of Metal's face.
Mm-hmm. I hate the next drawing we have of Sonic here on
the
next
page.
page.
Sucks. I hate it. It's a fucking travesty.
It's not very good.
I mean, this whole panel is a travesty, but first off, Sonic has this fucking... I hate it. Oh, it's so hard to even look at it. Hang on, I need to grab this popsicle stick on my table.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm covering his face. Okay, now I can look at it and critique it.
Yeah.
So there are these vague accent lines coming from Metal Sonic, I guess, that are just sort of around Sonic, while his two hands are up.
Yeah.
Kind of casually, I think the idea might be that he's batting away Metal's attacks, but it doesn't look like that. No, it doesn't look like accent.
Looks like he's clapping.
Like, it's fucking sit. I'm sitting on it. I hate it.
You're shitting on the comic! Oh, no, now it's gonna die, because we didn't all say we believe in fairies.
Yeah.
Tinkerbell's dying.
In the next panel, we apparently had to cut out some Eggman dialogue for time, because we jumped straight to Orbot saying, "Sorry, boss."
With Cubot adding, "I must have left my combat subroutines in my backup drive."
Which I assume was written with a bit of Eggman dialogue where he asked for help or something in mind.
Yeah.
And then Amy is like, "Sonic got Metal handled. No backup for you."
Only for Eggman to hold up his wedding ring box.
He says, useless, and pulls out a weird red thing.
Yeah, it looks
like two things strapped on top of each other.
I feel like he's gonna just open it up. It's like, "Will you marry me, Amy?"
But it is apparently a gun, and he shoots Amy's hammer out of her hand.
Great.
Which I would like to point out, Amy is holding her hammer in her left hand.
Mm-hmm.
The hammer is then sought, and the impact of where the hammer gets sought is on her right side.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell happened to her left hand? Look at the drawing.
Oh, God.
Why is her finger not done?
This is not great.
Her left index finger is just like... Is it behind the right...
I think it's behind. But
And like it really looks like this was drawn with the idea that she'd be holding her hammer in her right hand in mind.
uh-huh.
God. Anyway, yeah, I don't know why he has a weird gun that doesn't look like anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this a reference? It looks so weird.
It looks like shit. But Sonic's like Amy, and then Metal's like Sock because he hit
He
Sonic.
punches him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then for some reason, Sonic is now unconscious next to Tails.
Mm-hmm.
Amy is also next to Tails.
Tails is looking back and forth with the two.
Yeah, while he is typing on Eggman's hologram computer, and Eggman is looming behind him, and I guess putting his gun away.
Uh-huh.
Well, I've taken care of Amy's hammer. Time to put my gun away.
Mm-hmm.
And now, small fox boy, who is very defenseless and has no particular close combat skills, I will take you away from my computer. And then he whips his tail around. His tail's around in a helicopter motion, and then Eggman's like, just stop that. And Tails is like, no.
He won't stop that, and he just keep going.
And it looks like Eggman like gets a hold of Tails' leg and is like trying to pick him up, but it's so hard.
It is like just impossible to like pick up an 8-year-old who does not want to be picked up.
Tangle meanwhile is being surrounded by a Pokeball and is completely helpless to dodge it this time, even though she dodged one just fine earlier.
Yeah. And then Tails hits
also,
the last
I want to
button.
point out, last time we saw Tangle, a Pokeball was coming for her, and she was like, "Ah, not again!" And that was the last time we saw her.
Yeah, and now she's like, getting caught.
Anyway, Eggman in a really badly done, like, parcel silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like crap.
Yeah.
Tails is also weirdly in partial silhouette. Like, one of his tails and one of his ears is just in black.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. I don't know what effect they were going for, but it failed.
Effectively, I feel like
no.
It's like they're going for not having to color in those parts.
And then on the next page, there's a tiny cut-aside panel of Sado.
Yeah.
Not sure why, but he's like,
and then we cut back.
And Eggman, as we see the city outside, for all the good looking at the city does.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned, it has no particular visual identity other than it has crystals in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He says, "You have no idea what you've done. Without the limiter, there's nothing stopping the emerald growth."
And then...
And then I guess the whole building tilts.
Yeah. Everything's going to shit.
Yeah, and then there's this panel that I think I completely ignored before. But everything's in silhouette. Amy is still on the ground and helpless because she has lost her hammer and therefore is useless as a woman. But Sonic is immediately back on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
Eggman apparently, I think, accidentally throws Tails across the room.
That's rough. Tangle, like, lurches away from the Pokeball before it captures her.
Yeah, not for anything she did, but because the building lurches, she is, against her will, thrown to the side, and the Pokeball, which floats and therefore is not lurched and thrown, misses her.
Mm-hmm.
Eggman says, "Fine," and then hits a button on his shirt, which apparently conceals a button of the mechanical computer variety.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess at the bottom of a tower, a legs pop out.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Time for Plan B," as... Oh, I thought it turned into a rocket, but I think his whole base just got up on legs?
It got up on legs, I think. Which, I don't know why that's Plan B. Just, okay, time to walk around.
I assume the whole thing is lurching because all of the rocks underneath have been, mined out by nanomachines, and now they're just standing on a giant empty cavern.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but and that's it. That's the end. That's
Yeah, that's the end of the issue.
the next time says Plan B. Oh no, because
Ah.
that part is written by 9-year-olds apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
Next month, the cover shows the Neo Diamond Cutters
Yeah.
in the next month thing, and
And if you're wondering if the Letter Squad has anything in the fan letters pertaining to the current story arc that's been going on for like 4 issues now, no. No, there's nothing, no one has written in, apparently, with anything they want to print about the current story arc.
yeah, but
That's the comic.
so I guess any other thoughts about this terrible comic? Which sucks to say, you know.
I hate saying it, but, you know.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pretend that this is good, just because I think the writer on it usually does good work.
Yeah, what's unfortunate is that, like, so when Evan took over the comic in issue 33 of IDW Sonic, the comic went from being totally garbage to being good. And that was pretty incredible. I was surprised when it happened, and it's still surprising to think about even today. Um, she went on for 2 arcs in a row, Child Races and Bad Bases, and Test Run, all the while Ian was writing the Bad Guys miniseries, which was not good. So,
Yeah.
it gave us the impression, alright, the comic is good when Evan is writing it. Zedion happened, it was one of the worst Sonic comics of all time, and then Trial by Fire happened, and it was good again. So
It was wonderful.
it's a really good story. You should check out the collected volume. But like so once again, it's like okay, the comic's good when Evan is writing it. That has not held true in the subsequent issues since we've gotten into stories that she co-wrote with Ian.
Yeah.
Overpowered had its moments. It nearly salvaged what honestly felt unsalvageable, and I will give Evan all the credit in the world for managing that.
Mm-hmm.
It still didn't amount to like a good story.
Yeah.
And here we are in the penultimate part of the urban warfare, and I still don't know why we're even doing this. I still don't feel like there's a point. We have 1 issue left, and we still haven't like fully hammered home the environmentalist stakes of this. We're just here in action movie bullshit land.
You know, it does. It's not even like being brought up.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah. Like this fucking Sonic the Hedgehog comic book is not like hammering home how the planet could be affected. Really, it's just
also like I want to point out something that I just noticed about this comic. So Eggman mentions that they have no idea what they've done, and now that the crystals will just keep growing.
Mm.
We know that the city and the crystals grow by absorbing raw materials from the environment around them, which destroys the environment bit by bit. In other words, our heroes may have just set off a massive environmental disaster by messing with Eggman's like stuff recklessly, rather than maybe taking the time to do it in a safe way.
yeah.
And I'm very certain the comic isn't going to even remotely reckon with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not only because there's only 1 issue left, and this one was paced like utter garbage, but because this story has paid so little attention to the environment that all we get is, all right, the trees, they looked like they were doing bad, and wow, there's no rocks here.
Yeah, and like they did it better in RJ Sonic when they told this story. They did it better. They just did it better.
Sonic's Angels, and we're going to keep talking about this, Sonic Angels opens up with their Nanite City expanding and literally like destroying a forest. Like we see the wolf pack running away in terror. We see someone getting displaced
Mm-hmm.
away.
And we also just have Sonic in a team with lots of women you only see in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Which is also here.
Yeah,
Except, that
they
time
they
the
got
women got to do things.
uh-huh.
Mina, you got to use her super speed, and then it was ultimately, with the help of Bunny that everything got stopped and all that.
Yeah, and this just isn't half the comic Sonic Angels was.
Sonic Angels also, I want to point out, happened in one issue.
Yeah, this we are 4 issues into the story, and it has not done half of what Sonic Angels did.
Yeah.
But
And I'm just going to say, it is never going to help a story if Ian Flynn is starting off on it, because his bloated, overwrought, horribly inefficient style, if you can even call it that, of storytelling is just bad.
this isn't like a taste thing. It's just like because
I just want to point out something that has bugged me ever since I read it.
mm-hmm.
Because I once saw someone claim that Ian Flynn's storytelling was, like, efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the things you could accuse Ian's comics of being, efficient is not one.
Yeah.
His comics belabor the point. They take so long to get done. I remember distinctly on his old forum that he was bragging about having the longest story arc on Artsy Sonic ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only the longest arc because he took so long to tell it.
Yeah.
It's not that he has these huge story ideas that need this much time. It's that he's good at telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do we end up with here? We end up with 2 issues where barely anything gets done, and a huge amount of time and panel space is spent on no story. And then here in issue 60, right before it's ending, we get a comic that can't take a single breath because it has to get through all the rest of the plot points. We get a comic that feels like multiple panels and lines of dialogue have been cut from it, just so that it can all fit into one fucking comic.
Yeah.
We get a comic that feels like it's an utter trash fire, or a wreck.
Yeah. And also we have like 2 different beats in the comic where someone's like, oh, maybe this won't work out. No, it will work out. And it all and both times it happens in the span of one goddamn page.
Yeah, because we got Tangle curling up in a ball and being like, oh, maybe I can't do the thing. And it's like, no, I can't think negatively. I'll do the thing. And then we have Silver being like, I can't physically rip the crystal apart fast enough. And then Blaze is like,
Nod.
and then he's like, yes, I can physically rip the crystal apart fast enough.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Gotta say, this doesn't come up, like, ever for Evan issues until now, but the women really got shafted in this comic.
Yeah, I have to imagine that this was all, like, in whatever, like... God, it would be really nice to know, just, like, how much of this is Ian? How much is Evan?
Just, like who wrote the outline? We know they both, like, made the story together, but, like, just... how much of it? Like, did Evan take over the entire outline after the first 2 issues, or what? I don't know.
Because I believe what Evan said on Tumblr is that she asked Ian if she could write the parts with Shadow in them, and he said, sir. And boy howdy, there's barely been any fucking Shadow, so, don't know why that mattered.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. We're in a really weird, really bad place with the Sonic comics, and it's been pretty bad for a while, and it sucks to say that, but that's where we're at. We're in issue 60 now, and honestly, it hadn't even fully sunken in for me that we were in the 50s the entire time we were in the 50s. It just didn't feel like we'd progressed since issue 49.
Yeah, And like, also, I want to point out something is that
Yeah.
I'm not stupid. A lot of the things I've brought up, I've been like, why is this the way? Why is this so? And I know a lot of the reasons. Why are the Shadow androids here, even though they don't really add anything and their level of strength is arbitrary and pointless? It's fan service.
Yeah.
It's because Shadow androids showed up at the end of Shadow the Hedgehog, and then they showed up at the end of Sonic Heroes, and they showed up in Shadow the Hedgehog and in the multiplayer, and they were multicolored there, and so
Mm-hmm.
there they are here, and they're Shadow androids, and they look a bit like the ones from the multiplayer from Shadow the Hedgehog because it's a fan service.
Yeah.
Why is Blaze here even though she literally does nothing? Because it's fan service, because people like Blaze, and Silver's here, and Silver's doing something important to the story, and people like it when Silver and Blaze are together on the page, and you know, they could market the comic on the fact that there's Silver and Blaze are both in it, even though they barely do anything, and even Silver doesn't need to be here. You could have cut them out completely, and it wouldn't have changed. It probably would have just made the story better, because then we could have focused more on other characters. But, you know, again, why are the Diamond Cutters here? Well, apparently Diamond Cutters are here because when Ian tried to write a story that involved an actual miniseries for resolving the Tangle and Whisper, it involved Tangle being abusive to Whisper. So, you know,
Yeah.
I can believe that.
There was a post from Evan's Tumblr where she remarks that in the storyline that they had like tried to workshop, it involved Tangle being really shitty and emotionally manipulative at Whisper. So that sucks. And I tell you what, as a writer, there's like so many different ways that a story can go. And
Mm-hmm.
so like if you end up going down one road and it leads to one thing, that you're not preordained to that. Though
Yeah.
like I think some writers don't quite get that, so there's just this sense of like, oh, this is the story we could tell if we were telling the story, so let's tell a different story. Which sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was this issue. We didn't like it, but you know, we're not here to just give a rubber stamp to every issue. We're here to be honest. We're reviewing these comics. We're here to tell you whether you should buy them or not. Don't buy this comic. And
Yeah. I mean, we're not even really here to tell you that. We're here to give a critical analysis. We're
yeah,
here to share our thoughts. We're here to tell what people like, what we think worked, what we think didn't, and when we think there is a failure.
mm-hmm.
And
Otherwise,
this entire arc has been a failure.
yeah. And like you know, when an issue does do well, we can say that, and it means more than the people who just kind of like automatically say whatever new issue is the best thing ever because they don't have their own opinions.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, this is the worst issue that has been written by Evan Stanley on this comic.
yeah,
Just bar none, absolutely. This is the worst work Evan has put in. It's also the worst art Thomas Roethlisberger has put in, and I wasn't terribly jazzed about his work back in Imposter Syndrome. You know, I believe I mentioned that it wasn't great at the time,
yeah.
but this is downright bad.
Mm-hmm.
And not only just for the quality of the art, which, you know, that's subjective, yada yada, but just the visual storytelling is incoherent. And not just because it feels like, you know, multiple pages of the script were cut out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, part of me wonders, like, were the first two issues dragged out because Sato would have appeared too early otherwise, and Evan wanted to write the Sato parts? Is that...
I have been thinking over and over, like, couldn't they have just like done everything issues 57 and 58 did in one issue, and then just give Evan like more time to tell this story? I don't know.
I mean, I guess that would have been less of a paycheck for Ian Flynn, and, you know, gotta put food on the table, I guess, but...
Yeah, eating is required.
Mm-hmm.
You think we're good to read the solicit for next issue?
Yeah, what's happening next time? I mean, I know what's happening next time. They're gonna miraculously save the day, and Sato will probably be involved because he woke up ominously at the second to last page.
For IDW Sonic issue 61, this is it. The end of the arc, that is. Everyone is focused on the central command tower. If that goes down, the city will fall. But are 3 teams enough to stop something it seems even Dr. Eggman can't control? I don't fucking know. But
So this list is nothing then.
it's nothing. Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
the end is happening of the storyline.
yeah.
I guess Whisper and Lanolin will come back, and then the story will be even more unfocused because even more characters will be there.
Yeah. And the current release date is June 7th, 2023. It's already been delayed from its previous release date, which was late May. And it's currently set for June 7th. It may or may not go forward or back in its release date. There was that one time it got undelayed, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, given the general, like, this comic is so it. Has there been an issue that hasn't been delayed in recent memory?
Gosh,
Because it feels like at least like 90% of all the issues that come out get delayed.
yeah, it definitely feels that way.
And a fair few of them end up with multiple artists rambling to meet the deadline, and it shows in the art. Like it was the finale of Zeddy Hunt, which had the terrible art.
I don't think the finale had very good art, but I think it was part 3 for some reason that had just the trash fire art. Just like how Bad Guys Part 3 had really bad art.
Yeah, and to be clear, when we're talking about the bad art in those cases, it's not necessarily dig on the artist as much as it is dig on very clearly something went wrong because they had to bring in extra artists midway through the process, and they, of course, because they were brought in midway through, clearly didn't have enough time.
Here we are in Bad Guys number 3, where Starlin and the others are storming Paper Mario Castle.
Yep.
Oh man!
Oh, I will always remember that Paper Mario Castle.
It's incredible. One day we'll get back to it, but right now we're in Imperial City, and things are terrible. We hope that the comic gets better. It probably won't happen next issue. I doubt it'll happen in the next issue after that.
You know, I hated Bad Guys, but part of me is missing Bad Guys because at least the beginning of every issue of Bad Guys tricked me into thinking that this issue was going to be good.
As opposed to Urban Warfare, where it's been shit the whole time.
I was never tricked into thinking it was going to be good because it was never good. So
Oh man,
that's probably contributing to my terrible mood, especially at the beginning of this review. It's just
yeah, it definitely feels like there was definitely like some glimmer of like maybe this will be okay, or maybe this is halfway competent in like earlier stories that is just gone now. I don't know.
It feels so slapsawed. The art, the visual storytelling, the pacing, hell, the dialogue. There are so many. This is an Evan Stanley comic, and there are so many pieces of dialogue that feel just so wooden and utilitarian, to the point where, when the fun bits of dialogue did come up, I didn't enjoy them.
When
I was so drained by the boring, like, getting from point A to point B, nothing dialogue from especially the first part of the issue, but even beyond as we go in and through, that even the fun lines, the things that normally make me chuckle, like, heck, you were chuckling at some parts, and I was just not.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I remember when we were reading it, and I was just miserable reading this comic. This comic made me feel bad.
Which, sucks, because this is the thing that we are buying into every month, and we are letting into our lives, and unfortunately it is not paying off.
And, Evan is a writer that I have enjoyed her work in the past. I really respect her work, and it really sucks when a writer that you think is really great and that you even look up to and think, yeah, this she gets it. She knows how to do the writing good, and it's just like this happened.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It sucks. But that's all the comic we have for today. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Rain and Freo in chat for hanging out with us, keeping us company as we go through this horrible comic. Um,
Yeah.
we've purposefully left ourselves a treat after after this. We have a Catwoman issue we haven't read yet. It's issue 55, I think, and it's available now for anyone who wants to buy a good comic.
Read
Um,
Catwoman instead
Read
by
Catwoman
Tini
instead.
Howard.
Yeah, by Teeny Howard. She starts at issue 39, and she's still going right now. Yeah.
I
Freya
think the
writes
first volume of
Dangerous Liaison. That's the name of
yeah.
the first volume.
So just look that up.
Yeah.
Catwoman Dangerous Liaisons.
Freya writes, "Enjoy the Catwoman comic." Thank you. We
We
will,
will.
and I hope any other viewers do as well. But yeah, that's all we've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please feel free to follow our Twitch channel. We try to stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and today's a Thursday. And if you're watching from our YouTube VOD channel, which is linked to in our Twitch description, you can feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. Closer does read the comments. And also, our Twitch is linked to on the description of every VOD, so you can try and catch us live there. Thanks for being in chat, Freo. See you again. And thank you all so much. See you next time. I'm Felicia Ronald. It's close over there.
I need a
Bye.